Just overall impressions. What did you think of the book of Hosea? I mean, this is a strange way to start. The minor prophets, and I'm not saying it's going to get any less strange as we go through the time, but just overall impressions. Book Hosea, did you like it? Did you not? What did you think about it? This is the book you just studied. Many of you had a date with this book this last weekend. What did you think of it? Alice?
I liked it.
You liked it. Why?
I didn't expect to see so many snippets of God saying, hey, Israel, come back to me. I love you.
Yeah.
So I expected a lot of judgment, but I saw a lot of mercy.
Yeah, we're actually going to see a lot of judgment in the book. Look at your notes on page... by the way, this is where we're going to interact. Sometimes I'll just point you to something in your notes. But in your notes, you can see on page 40, look at that chart on page 40, evidences of sin, 65%. So Alice, that's what you were expecting. And it was there, right? There's no doubt there was a lot of references to sin. And then curses, 25%. So here, what are we referring to here? Mosaic covenant, Mount Sinai. If you follow me, blessings. If you don't, curses. So that is what percentage of the book? See, this is the importance of math. 65 and 25 equals what? 90. Nice job, Matt. Matt's been sick all weekend, but he's on top of his game. 90% of the book. Look at that for curses. 20 of the 27 curse types found in the Pentateuch are referenced in the book Hosea. So you would think that would bring this heaviness to the book. But what Alice is saying is, it's amazing, even though it's 10% of the book, how much you see God pursuing His people and saying, come back. And so that's a beautiful part of the book. All right, someone else. What did you think of the book overall? Candace?
Well, I was thinking the same thing. Like, I felt like I was like in a tug of war of like pulling, saying like sin, but then all of a sudden God's like, no, like I still love you. And so it was really cool to see how like in our own lives that's the same way. Like,
Yeah.
like stop that, but still like love, like continuing.
Hosea really is that tug of war, because where these little seek the Lord, return, come back are stuck in there. I mean, they're just stuck in these places, and all of a sudden you're feeling like this, oh man, this is so heavy. Oh, the Lord is still pursuing His people. And then it's, the Lord is still there. And that's what you can feel when you read through the prophets. You can actually have both of those feelings. And depending on where your focus is, it's going to affect how you come out of the book at the end. Also, how the book ends helps that as well. So that this book ends with restoration. You end on a more positive note and you go, okay, this wasn't so bad. After all, God is going to do something. And that helps you pull together all these other references along the way about seek the Lord, return to Him. And so some of the blessing that's there. But you can always have that viewpoint of the heaviness of the people's sin and the curses that are there. Or you can read through the prophets and see God is after His people. He's after His people. He's after His people. And that becomes a beautiful part of it. All right, Daniel, what did you think of the book?
The love of God.
So you would experience the same thing.
Yeah.
So love of God, connecting with Alice, Candace, same thing. You were able to experience that. Were you disturbed by anything in the book? Anything disturbing? Jeff?
That God would have one of His servants go through an extremely challenging experience.
Okay.
For His will to be accomplished. And that was the end of that. When I read that, it was a little uncomfortable. It's just like, oh.
Just a little uncomfortable. Yeah. Who wants to be a follower of Christ? God, take my life and let it be. And then you read Hosea and you go, just a little, I want to put an asterisk there. Take my life, but not like Hosea. It really is disturbing, isn't it? I mean, it's bizarre. Now remember, when we talked about the prophets, that they were not just these people that had this, holy calling, but they were real life people engaged in real life events. Hosea causes us to see that right from the beginning. I mean, God didn't just call him to go deliver a message, did He? Hey, go preach a sermon on the street corner and tell everybody that I'm the Lord and they need to bow down to me. No, He says go marry an unchaste woman or a promiscuous woman or a prostitute, however you would understand that phrase. Now, of course, Chisholm takes a little bit different view than that. Let's say it's simply the view, a woman who will become promiscuous. Now, Hosea has to live this life. And so he has children, they have a great family, And then, just like the Lord prophesied, she then goes off, and I mean, that's a devastation to a relationship. And this is all to be a picture for the nation of Israel. God bless Hosea. If you don't have the deepest respect for this man, when you come out of reading this book, somehow you haven't engaged what just happened. And it's easy to leave Hosea behind, right? Because ultimately, the book is not focused on Hosea and Gomer. Ultimately, it really is about God and Israel. And so once you get out of chapter 3, you hit the ground running. It's all God and Israel, and you can forget that Hosea even existed in this relationship with Gomer. But let's just read through the first 3 chapters. Open up your Bibles to Hosea. When we go through these books, I like to take a little bit of time to try to at least get the feel for what's going on. And so we're going to read through it. But before we do, I want us to look at a few introductory comments. Look on page 39. You see that Hosea prophesies during the reigns of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, Hezekiah, kings of Judah, and Jeroboam, king of Israel. Now, why is that important, Eric? How does that help us understand what's going on in Hosea?
Well, it helps us relate to why Hosea was given the message from God to speak to his people. What were they doing? What was the context of the kingdom at the time?
Okay, so where are we going to find that context?
We actually find it in verse 1:1 to begin with already.
All right, so we go back to Kings.
Right.
So we go back to Kings. We have kings that Hosea prophesies during this time period, and so we have a background to this book. And so it's nice when the prophet clearly identifies that for us, because then we can go, oh, okay, we can go back to 2 Kings and find this message, or 1 Kings, and we can see that he prophesies in the years 753 to 715. Now, we're going to talk about main message in just a minute, but the prophet Hosea means salvation. The Hebrew name is similar to Joshua or Jesus. Okay, so this is the same kind of semantic range for this word. And really, we have no information about Hosea outside of this book. So we learn a lot about his life in one sense. In another sense, we don't know much about him at the same time. We've got a number of introductory comments there, but I want you to skip over to page 43 in your notes, because you can see there Hosea identifies with 5 kings. And that goes from 43 to 45 that we see some of this. But what I've done in those few pages is simply give you a little bit of a summary for what was taking place in the lives of each of these kings. So look at Uzziah. Uzziah did right. Okay, so he was a good king. Jotham, look down for number 2. Jotham did what was right in the sight of the Lord. Ahaz, if you know anything about Ahaz, one of the worst kings Israel ever had, Ahaz did not do what was right in the sight of the Lord. Go to the top of the next page. Hezekiah, one of the great kings, one of the great revivals we see throughout the history of Israel. Hezekiah did right in the sight of the Lord. So those are all kings of Judah. Now look at the king of Israel, number 5. Jeroboam II did evil in the sight of the Lord. So that's the context. It's the northern kingdom. That's where Hosea's message is going. And so he's leading the people similarly to Jeroboam, son of Nebat, the first Jeroboam. He reigned 41 years in Israel, and Yahweh used him to relieve the suffering of his people. So there was a positive. In spite of the evil prevalent in the land, Yahweh allowed Jeroboam II to have a long reign and actually restored the boundaries and gave them military success. Every now and then in the kings, you see these bizarre things where the king is evil, yet God is still blessing. I mean, that's mercy of the Lord that he does that, especially these kings that reign a long time. Ahaz was another king that reigned a long time. It's like, what in the world? Lord, get rid of kings like that. Let good kings reign for a long time. So there was military success. This was all accomplished as a result of God's gracious dealings with his people. And so you can see the way God is being good to his people. And then it says a note there, the presence and ministry of Jonah, which seems to affect some positive change in the nation. So all these references are back to 2 Kings 14. And we're going to learn about Jonah in a few weeks. But Jonah, when you read that book, for all practical purposes, you have a negative view of this prophet. So I'm trying to let you know up front, Jonah prophesied during the time period of the same king, And there was a positive influence that he actually had. So when you go to Kings and you read about Jonah, it's a very positive viewpoint of him. When you go to the book of Jonah, it's not very positive at all. It's just a little whiny even. Dr. Tanis preached through Jonah yesterday at church, and the reading, which was done by Dr. Draycott, was just, he did such a great job of capturing what potentially is the heart of Jonah as he expresses his viewpoint toward God. Now, that's the one thing about hermeneutics that's really important for us. We don't know the emotion behind the words. We can project that onto it, but I imagine that he just nailed what was going on inside of Jonah in a very, very powerful way. So this is the context of what is going on during this time period. So with that in mind, let's read Hosea. And we're going to read 1 through 3. Shouldn't take us that long to do that. And the way we're going to do that is we are going to just start and go around the room. And just whenever you get to a spot, we're going to move up. We're going to start all the way back here. Remind me of your name. Okay, we're going to start right back here. We're going to just move around, come up, and then we'll pass the baton over. Just take a few verses, paragraph, wherever you feel like there's a breaking point. And that will be what will get us through these first 3 chapters, okay? So begin with chapter 1, verse 1. No, Bible! There we go. Hosea 1:1.
The word of the Lord came to Hosea the son of Beeri during the reign of Uzziah, Jotham, and Ahaz, Hezekiah, kings of Judah, and during the reign of Jeroboam, son of Jehoash, king of Israel. Continue reading.
Just as long as you want to.
When the Lord began to speak through Hosea, the Lord said to him, "Go take yourself an adulterous wife and children of unfaithfulness, because the land is guilty of adultery and departing from the Lord." So he married Gomer, daughter of Diblaim, and she conceived and bore him a son.
Then the Lord said to Hosea, "Call him Jezreel, because I will soon punish the house of Jehu for the massacre at Jezreel, and I will put an end to the kingdom of Israel. In that day I will break Israel's bow in the valley of Jezreel." Gomer conceived again and gave birth to a daughter. And the Lord said to Hosea, "Call her Lo-Ruhamah, for I will no longer show love to the house of Israel, that I should at all forgive them. Yet I will show them love to the house of Judah, and I will save them, not by bow, sword, or battle, or by horses and horsemen, but by the Lord their God."
After Gomer had weaned no compassion, she conceived and gave birth to a son. Then the Lord said, "Name him not my people, for you are not my people, and I will not be your God. Yet the number of the Israelites will be like the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured or counted. And in the place where they were told, 'You are not my people,' they will be called sons of the living God. And the Judeans and the Israelites will be gathered together. They will appoint for themselves a single ruler, and go up from the land, for the day of Jezreel will be great."
Call your brothers my people and your sisters compassion. Rebuke your mother, rebuke her, for she is not my wife, and I am not her husband. Let her remove the promiscuous look from her face, and her adultery from between her breasts.
Otherwise, I'll strip her naked and make her as bare as on the day she was born. I'll make her like a desert, turn her into a parched land, and slay her with thirst. I will not show my love to her children, because they are children of adultery. The mother has been unfaithful and has conceived them in disgrace. She said, "I'll go after my lovers, and who give me my food and my water, my roll, my linen, my oil, and my drink. Therefore I will block her path with thorn bushes. I will wall her in so that she cannot find a way. She will chase after her lovers, but not catch them. She will look for them, but not find them. Then she will say, I will go back to my husband as at first, for then I was better off than now."
She does not acknowledge that I was the one who gave her the grain, the new wine, and oil, who lavished on her the silver and gold, which they used for Baal. Therefore I will take away my grain when it ripens, and my new wine when it is ready. I will take back my wool and my linen, intended to cover her naked body. So now I will expose her lewdness before the eyes of her lovers. No one will take her out of my hands.
And I will put an end to all her mirth, her feasts, her new moons, her Sabbaths, and all her appointed feasts. And I will lay waste her vines and her fig trees, of which she said, "These are my wages." which my lovers have given to me. I will make them a forest, and the beasts of the field shall devour them. And I will punish her for the feasts of the Baals, when she burned offerings to them, and adorned herself with her ring and jewelry, and went after all her lovers, and forgot me, declares the Lord.
Therefore, behold, I will allure her, and bring her into the wilderness, and speak tenderly to her. And there I will give her vineyards, and make the valley of Achor a door of hope. And there she shall answer as in the days of her youth, as at the time when she came out of the land of Egypt.
They declares the Lord, you will call me my husband. You will no longer call me my master. I will remove the names of the Baals from her lips. No longer will their names be invoked. In that day I will make a covenant for them with the beasts of the field and the birds of the air and the creatures that move along the ground. Bow and sword and battle are abolished from the land, so that all may lie down in safety.
And I'll betroth you to me forever. I'll betroth you to me in righteousness and justice, steadfast love and in mercy. I'll betroth you to me in faithfulness, and you shall know the Lord. And in that day I will answer, declares the Lord. I will answer the heavens, and they shall answer the earth. And there shall answer the grain, the wine, and the oil. They shall answer Jezreel. And I will sow her for myself in the land. And I will have mercy on no mercy. I will say to not my people, you are my people. And he shall say, you are my God.
And the Lord said to me, Go again, love a woman who is loved by another man, and is an adulteress. And even as the Lord loves the children of Israel, though they turn to other gods and love cakes of raisins. So I bought her 415 shekels of silver, and a homer, and a lethek of barley. And I said to her, You must dwell as mine for many days. You shall not play the whore, or belong to another man. So will I also be to you. For the children of Israel shall dwell many days without king or prince, without sacrifice or pillar, without ephod or household god. Afterward, the children of Israel shall return and seek the Lord their God, and David their king, and they shall come into fear to the Lord, and to his goodness and to his ways.
Okay, and then in chapter 4, verse 1, this message just moves into the relationship between God and Israel. But in these early verses, it can be just a little difficult to know who's actually being talked about, especially in chapter 2. And if you look at your notes, we're going to just go back a little bit again to the pages towards the back. I have a little reference to this. On page 47, actually go to 49. 49 is where I really try to bring this out for you, especially with number 2. And I try to use the terms foreground and background, because when you read, especially through chapters 1 through 3, there are times when Hosea and Gomer are right there, and you know that God and Israel are in the background somewhere. And then all of a sudden, it seems as if God and Israel now have pulled forward. Hosea and Gomer are in the background. And you especially feel that in chapter 2, I think. Chapter 2, verse 1, where it says there in the text, Say to your brothers, Ami, and to your sisters, Ruhamah, contend with your mother, contend, for she's not my wife, I'm not her husband. Let her put away her harlotry from her face, and her adultery from between her breasts, lest I strip her naked. And then it just keeps on moving. And then all of a sudden you realize, okay, this is not Hosea and Gomer going on here. This is something bigger than that. Even though it starts off right in the context of you're going to have children, name them this, name them, then all of a sudden say to. And you begin to feel, I think, either a little bit of confusion, and then you begin to realize, okay, Hosea and Gomer now have gone back like this. Is that true? When you read through that, now God and Israel are to the forefront. And then chapter 3, verse 1 makes it very clear again, right? Boom. Hosea, Gomer are here. And then all of a sudden in chapter 3, and was it verse 4, it gives us the 4 there. For the sons of Israel will remain for many days. And so now all of a sudden, Hosea and Gomer are going to the background. And then beginning with chapter 4, verse 1, we have much more the sermonic type material that we expect in the prophet. So in the first 3 chapters, you've got this little bit of an introduction background, and even there, Hosea and Gomer, God and Israel. You understand what I mean by background, foreground? They're moving forward like this, and then all of a sudden we find out what is the real focus. Well, it's God and Israel. Now go back to page 39 in your notes. We have at the very top of the page, his main message is. All right, look at your worksheets. Look at your worksheets. I asked you to try to determine what the main message of the book might be. And so I want to hear from some of you what you found to be the main message. Now, we're going to start off with main message. In your worksheets, what I have you do is analysis of the book, and then you're grouping these together, and then finally you're getting to the main message. So I want to make sure that we're being consistent with that. So we want to try to understand the main message here. There needs to be a connection between steps number 4, steps number 5, and then ultimately this is step number 6. There needs to be a connection between these steps that you're taking and the answers to your question. Step number 6 ultimately becomes the answer to which question? Question number 1. So ultimately this becomes the answer to question number 1, and then you just provide more detailed explanation. So you show me how you get there, and then you explain a little bit in your answer to question number 1. Step number 5 ultimately becomes the answer to which question? Number 2. And so ultimately this becomes the answer to question number 2. You don't have to provide any explanation. If you have 2 major divisions, then that's the answer to question number 2. That's all you have to say. Chapters, and then what the section is all about. You follow me on this? Want to make sure that you are doing exactly what you need to be doing on these worksheets so that you can be successful when you turn these in. So when we're going to give the main message now, but then I'm going to back us up and I'm going to say, tell me what your structure was as well, okay? Because I want you to be thinking your way through the book. Now Hosea has more than 10 chapters, so we began with just chapter by chapter analysis. What did you end up with as the main message, Zach? What's the huh?
The huh is I did the paragraph, but not the sentence.
Oh, okay, so you have a long...
So the main message is God is calling back and pursuing his unfaithful people for them breaking their covenant.
Okay, so let's just talk about that for just a second. When you summarize, you're allowed to use a word, phrase, sentence, paragraph, and even, here, same thing here. I want you to try to be as succinct as possible, but ultimately you understand what your paragraph says. And what was that again? The call?
The call to repent and return.
So a call to repent. My writing's really bad. And return.
To covenant faithfulness.
To covenant faithfulness. Does that summarize it for you? Or face judgment. All right, this captures just a lot of what's in the book. Definitely, we're going to see that call to return and repent. Definitely, this is the focus, covenant faithfulness. Definitely, they're going to have this in their future if they do not. Okay? What would be another way to say the main message of the book? Olivia, what did you put down?
I said God is always faithful to Israel, but he's calling them to return with a repentant heart.
Okay, so you've got a lot there too. Well, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Or they will be punished for their sins.
Okay, so you're bringing in another element here to this whole idea, and that is that God is always faithful. Where's the problem in the relationship? It's with Israel. And then once you get to Israel, you're dealing with it right here. But we also see that throughout the book. God's faithful. In fact, in the end, is it Israel's ultimate response that turns them back to the Lord? Or the Lord just says, I am going to do this? I mean, you see a lot of calls to return, but along the way, the Lord makes it clear, it's not really about what Israel's going to do here. I am going to be faithful to my covenant people, and I'm going to restore them. There is a massive forward look in this book. The words will or shall. I mean, those words are everywhere, everywhere. Over 100 times you find those words in the book. Even just there in chapter 2, we saw it so much. I will, I will, I will, I will, I will. And the I wills are focused on both this judgment, and then one more thing that we could add in here is the concept of restoration, right? Because that is a theme in the book, and the wills are focused on those two aspects. Judgment is coming. Hosea, name your children this, because Israel's got problems in their future. But I'm a faithful God. I will bring about a restoration for the covenant I made with the people at Mount Sinai. And that is where we see just how God is so amazing that he does this despite Israel's continued promiscuity, to use the words of the book. Okay, who was it? Let me see. It was Zach. You gave me this first one right here. How did you get there? Okay, if this is your main message, back us up. How many major divisions did you have in the book? What about your structure?
3.
Okay, so you had 3, and what were they?
Chapters 1 through 3, 4 through 10, and 11 through 14.
All right, chapters 1 through 3, 4 through 10, 11 through 14. Chapters 1 through 3, you got a succinct statement for this?
God seeking to his unfaithful bride despite her whoredom.
Okay, so God seeking his unfaithful bride despite their whoredom. All right, and then chapters 4 through 10?
God's accusations, judgment, and punishment against Israel for her unfaithfulness and lack of repentance.
Okay, and then 11 through 14?
God's remembrance of his covenants, call for repentance, and punishment.
You even got a cadence to this thing. God's seeking, God's judgment, and then God's remembrance. Is that what it was? All right. And then, of course, he added more there. And then ultimately that leads to, as you pull these, and you see this kind of continuity, you pull it together, a call to repent, return to covenant faithfulness, or face judgment. Okay? Who else? Olivia, how many major sections did you have?
I had the same 3.
Okay, so how did you title them?
I said that the first one was God is faithful, but Israel is continuously breaking the covenant.
Okay, so that's very clear in this, right? You got Hosea, Gomer, God and Israel, all right?
The second one I said the nations have turned away from God, and they only through a truly repentant heart from Israel will God restore them and forgive them.
Okay, so there's a call to Israel there.
And then the last one, that God seeks to bless them and restore them.
Okay, so God is going to do something, this remembrance going back to Sinai. So in both of these, as you look at these 3 major divisions here, I mean, Mount Sinai is right in the center of all this, isn't it? Just like we said, the Mosaic covenant, I mean, this is what God is calling the people back to. He's using Hosea to bring this message. Who had more than 3, or just different? Yes, Esther.
I had 4 with kind of a subpoint, so I grouped chapters 1 through 6.
Okay, so 1 through 6 was how you did it.
7 through 10.
Okay, so 7 through 10. So what you've done is just take these chapters right here just a little bit differently. And then what else?
11 through 13.
Okay, 11 through 13. And then 14. So then you took this one and you broke it down. Now, why did you see a difference? You didn't go with this one, Hosea, Gomer. You actually added 4, 5, and 6 onto there. What did you title that?
I called that Israel's adultery, God's faithfulness and compassion, with Hosea's, the chapter 1 through 3 is kind of a subset under that. Hosea's family as an illustration of this to Israel.
Okay, and so then it just moves from Hosea and Gomer as the primary into 4 through 6 being much more Israel and what's going on there. Okay, and that makes a lot of sense because in 1 through 3, you've got Hosea, Gomer, God and Israel, Hosea, Gomer, chapter 4, God and Israel, and she's just taking those 3 chapters and putting them together. Then chapter 7 through 10 was titled what?
Israel's adultery with other nations by relying on them for help in serving their gods.
Okay, perfect.
And punishment.
And then 11 through 13?
Israel is guilty of rebellion against their own God.
Okay.
I just saw in that section that God keeps saying, I was your God from the beginning. Why are you going after all these other different things?
And then this right here, was that where you focused on the restoration?
Right, call for repentance.
A call for repentance. So, all right, so this is very interesting what you found as the difference between these two. These would be the other gods, other nations. How would you say that? So with other nations, looking to them for help, and then their adultery with God, looking at other gods in chapters 11 through 13.
Yeah. Well, yeah, rebelling against their own God.
Okay. All right, we spend a little time doing this because all I'm wanting you to do is engage the biblical text. That's all I'm wanting you to do. And I want you to be able to think your way through it. I want you to be able to explain why. See, there's nothing wrong with one student saying chapters 1 through 3 and chapters 4 through 10, and another saying, oh, I think chapters 1 through 6 and chapters 7 through 10. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, when we look at scholarship, photo op, when we look at scholarship, might there be a better way? Okay, when you look at the consensus of scholars, might you see that if 30 scholars tried to outline this book, 27 of them landed right here, and none of them used this one right here, so that's awful, Esther. How in the world were you thinking this? No, that's fine. Esther, you heard, can clearly think her way through the book, and that's what I'm asking you to do. And whatever you put for this right here, it's got to flow out of what study you did in the book. The point being, you can understand the Bible. I don't want Biola students to leave Biola with this idea of, oh, it's just too complex and everything's out of my control. That's for other people to do. Let's leave that to the Pope to try to understand what's going on in the Bible, or my Bible profs. No, you can do this. Do you follow me on this? You guys can understand the Bible. It just takes a little bit of work. You can't do this in 2 hours at Starbucks. It's going to take a little more time than that for you to work your way through this. All right, so whatever you have as main message, this is what I want to make sure. Everybody needs to be doing this properly. That there is a connection between what you end up with in step number 6 and your answer to question number 1. I want to see this stated exactly here as your very first statement. If you don't have it in Hosea, that's fine. But I want to see that strong of a connection. Some students will say, yeah, but I didn't want to say the same thing. No, wrong. I want you to say the same thing because I'm asking you, what is the main message? You've already done all of this work, so I want to see it in question number 1 and then explain it. Okay, the main message, and now I'll explain it just a little bit. So for question number 2, there's got to be a connection with step number 5. I want it to say the same thing. Whatever you ended up with as your major divisions in the book, that's what I want to see as your answer to question number 2. I don't want you to put as your answer to question number 2, see step number 5. I don't want to go back and look at it, although I will be doing that. I want to see the answer right here. And the first thing I do when I look at your worksheet on Hosea, I will, because you're going to put steps 4, 5, and 6 at the back. And so I have question 1 on the top. I will flip back to question number 6 and look at question number 1, and I want to see the connection. And I prefer not to try to really work hard to see the connection. I want it to be obvious. And then I will look at step number 5 in question number 2, and I want to see the connection. It's got to be the same thing there. And then we'll work our way through the rest of the book. All right, page 39 in your notes. Keep your worksheets out. And let's see here. Let me get this down so we can see what's going on here. We've already done our main message there. This is what I want you to put in your notes right there. His main message is Yahweh's unconditional covenant love in spite of Israel's continual rebellion. So, because of his unconditional covenant love, he will judge. Because of his unconditional covenant love, he will restore. It's all captured in there, just very succinctly, in spite of Israel's continual rebellion. They can continue to go down this path, continue to go down this path, continue to go down this path, and God will show them favor in the end. God is unbelievable. He's amazing. He's worthy of our worship. He constantly pursues his people, and it's out of that obedience will flow. So look also on page 39. This book is written to Israel. We've already brought that out, and you can see a number of references, but there's also references to Judah throughout the book, especially that one that says, I'm going to show favor to Judah. Now, again, when I pull back and I see passages like that, I think to myself, Messiah. Okay, ultimately this is about Messiah. It's not because this is the younger brother and mom and dad like the younger brother better than the older brother who is rebellious and prodigal and deserves to be punished. This is about the Messiah. God is showing favor to the southern kingdom. It's the only kingdom that has good kings as you go through the minor prophets, or as you look at the book of Kings. All of Israel's kings were evil. Every last one. You don't even have to go look and say, well, I wonder if this king was good or evil. If it says king of Israel, evil. That's just the way it is. But the kings of Judah, there's some good kings. There's revivals that take place. He's going to show favor to them. And it's not because they're better than the northern kingdom. Just read the Bible. You'll find out they're not any better than the northern kingdom. It's the Messiah that God continually has a focus on. So you'll see both. Now look, Israel is referred to as Ephraim 37 times. So this is poetic license, so to speak. Now why? It was the strongest and most influential tribe would be one possibility. And so here you have a part that represents the whole. It's very poetic to do something like that. So I'm talking about Israel. I'm going to reference Ephraim. So the part represents the whole. And the first king of Israel, Jeroboam I, was an Ephraimite. Could also be the possibility. And you can see that in 1 Kings 11:26. So all 8th century prophets are to Judah and Israel, because this is before the fall of the northern kingdom. So you still have both of them there. And so the prophets are going to be representing both, although they might have a particular focus like Hosea does. Now look at point B there. Hosea is the longest prophet and also the most complete. So right from the get-go, you've had to work through the longest prophet. That means the rest of the books are going to be shorter. Zechariah will be long as well, but not quite as long as Hosea. And it's the most complete. Many consider this to be the primary reason that it holds first position in the prophets. Now remember, what we've talked about before is dating has something to do with that. And so Hosea is also earlier because it's to the northern kingdom. They're still around. Most scholars would agree that the first 6 minor prophets happened before the last 6. At least they would agree to that. And so Hosea is the first. Some would also say that, if you get this long one up front, you aren't going to lose these other fragments to follow. Point C, Hosea introduces courtroom terminology to us. Look at, because God has a case to bring against his people. Look at chapter 4, verse 1. Jeff, you want to read that for us?
Listen to the word of the Lord, O sons of Israel, for the Lord has a case against the inhabitants of the land, because there is no faithfulness or kindness or knowledge of God in the land.
So the Lord has a case against his people. So that's that courtroom terminology that's there. They're in covenant relationship. So anytime you have this courtroom terminology, again, we're going back to Sinai. All that the Lord says we will do, you will be my people, I will be your God, and they move forward, but Israel breaks the covenant. So the Lord is saying, in light of the covenant that we've made with one another, you have broken that. Now I have a case against you. I'm going to take you to court because you violated. I've been faithful. You are not faithful. We're going to court. Now the issue in this particular courtroom is, you look at that very second to last sentence, he's not only the plaintiff, but also the judge. Now that's going to create a problem for Israel. Okay, the verdict has already been established. Chapter 5, verse 1, hear this, O priests, give heed, O house of Israel. Listen, O house of the king, for the judgment applies to you. For you have been a snare at Mizpah and a net spread out on Tabor, and it goes on down through there. But the Lord is acting as judge at this point. So there's no reasonable defense. And you can see that I cite there chapter 4, verse 4 for that. Israel's in a boatload of trouble. I mean, ultimately, as far as this goes. Now, point D at top of page 40, we already referenced that. 90% of the book, evidences of sin. In curses, 10% of the book's message. Look at, though, I try to identify a little bit what we mean by blessing passages. There's a call to repentance in a number of places. There's a lacking a call to repentance, but still God is going to do something despite the fact that Israel does not respond. Now, as far as Hosea's marriage goes, there's 4 views on what this might mean. And we would oftentimes spend time going through these in small groups, and we aren't going to do that today because I want us to look at our notes, and I want us to see that there are 4 different viewpoints on how to understand this marriage. You've got the hypothetical marriage on page 41, the literal marriage where Gomer is unchaste, and then you have on page 42 the literal marriage, Gomer is chaste, and then 4 is, it's just a spiritual infidelity. In other words, she doesn't actually commit physical adultery, it's a spiritual adultery. So in my home we worship Yahweh. She says, "Nuh-uh, I worship other gods as well." So she commits that spiritual infidelity. Now look, when we consider what's going on, and this is all adapted from Expositor's Bible commentary and the Word Biblical Commentary, but the questions which expose the issue are the two women, chapters 1 and 3, the same woman? Okay, that's a question. And what I always tell students is go to the natural reading of the text. And when you read chapter 1 and chapter 3, did you understand that to be the same woman? What do you think? Just anybody thoughts? Yeah, why, Riley?
Because there's no significance of, like, sort of, okay, you had this wife, Jarm Desert, okay, now go find someone random, and go get it. There's no significance to the text.
So the flow of the context would lead you to believe, okay, even though it feels a little awkward. Did any of you feel the awkwardness of it? I mean, when you get to chapter 3, verse 1, there's a lot of different translations for this. Then the Lord said to me, "Go again, love a woman who is loved by her husband." And it's like, okay, what's going on here? But when you just back up and look at the context, okay, we've got the same woman that's here. Another question is, was Gomer a prostitute when Hosea married her, or did she become unfaithful later and cause him in retrospect to realize that he had married a prostitute? Okay, now that's the view of Chisholm, right? That this occurs during the marriage, this particular infidelity. And then finally, did Hosea divorce Gomer? Becomes an issue. What is the known biographical material that we have? There's very little information when you really break this down. And so I've tried to highlight it here. There's others that you possibly could add. But in chapter 1, we know that all this takes place in Hosea's lifetime. We know the fact of the marriage. We know the name of his wife, even the family she comes from, the gender of the children, the birth order of the children. In chapter 3, the fact of the marriage, the bride price, the non-consummation of the marriage, and then the previous promiscuity of the wife. We know those things as we try to work our way through this material. But still, you end up with just some difficulty. So I want to again, with you, raise the issue of what is the natural reading of the text. Would you, in your reading, and a lot of this depends on your translation that you're using, right? Because translations oftentimes get into interpretation instead of just giving you exactly what's there. And this is a prime example where almost every translation interprets. So when we don't like really wooden translations, we like people to smooth it out. But the more wooden it is, the more exact it is. And then you have to interpret there rather than having a translation company interpret that for you. It preserves the text just like it is. And that's why you need to stay as close to the text as possible. In your natural reading of the text, was Gomer a promiscuous woman when Hosea married her? What do you think? Who said yes over here? Okay, why?
Well, because Israel is already in the state of adultery, so if Hosea is asked to, he says, go marry a.
Okay, so you're going to back up and look at the big picture, and you're going to realize, okay, Israel's already in a state of adultery, but now you have to start breaking down the state. And so this becomes a big issue in the viewpoints. Was Israel, in fact, promiscuous when the Lord entered into covenant relationship? In Hosea, there are a number of references, and I don't have them written down anywhere right now off the top of my head, but there's a number of references that refers to Israel back in the wilderness in her purity, okay, in the days of her youth and how pure she was. And so some would say, well, based on that, no, when the Lord entered into relationship with Israel, she was already chaste. And so if this is a picture of God in Israel, then if Hosea is going to marry her, then she would be chaste at the time. And then she's going to fall into to adultery with the covenant, because that's the point of Hosea. You are now there, but were you there before? Okay, so maybe not. Anyone want to add anything to this? What do you think? Did she already have children? Oh, go ahead.
Couldn't it be also though that God is trying to show that like even while Israel right now is breaking the covenant, God is still choosing to redeem them again, and that's why if Hosea got married to a prostitute, it's like I am walking into that and I'm reclaiming it.
It's a possibility, but the issue still remains. Was Israel promiscuous when so if this is a picture, say if you got Hosea and Gomer, God and Israel, and you're going back and forth, and this is going to be a representation, God's using Hosea's life as an object lesson, then, which is it? And so this is really debatable, and in your notes, you have the view stated, and then responses to the view. And this is simply the stuff that's taken from Expositor's Bible Commentary and Word Biblical Commentary. And I really think there probably could be a better article written out there. But what you need to understand is most of your translations, which slants the way you think about this, provides just a little bit of interpretation. New International Version, who's got that? What does it say?
It says, when the Lord began to speak through Hosea, the Lord said to him, go, take to yourself an adulterous wife and children of unfaithfulness, because the land is guilty of the vilest adultery. Okay, so that says, go take an adulterous wife and children of unfaithfulness. And some people would even say, although I think that's probably as close to the text as most of our translators are going to get, the NIV really tries to stick with it here, but most people would say that that's still to be understood proleptically is the word that they use, that this adulterous wife is something that's going to happen. These children of unfaithfulness are something that's going to happen in the future. All right, English Standard Version. AJ. Good morning to you.
When the Lord first spoke through Hosea, the Lord said to Hosea, go take to yourself a wife of whoredom and have children of whoredom, for the land commits great whoredom by forsaking the Lord.
Okay, so now notice in the English Standard Version there, go take yourself a wife of whoredom. Now that would seem that he's going to marry this one, but still could be understood proleptically, and then have children. Okay, so there's a little interpretation going on there that these children are going to come out of this particular relationship. All right, so we've got a lot of different issues. Here's the New American Standard. When the Lord first spoke through Hosea, the Lord said to Hosea, go take to yourself a wife of harlotry, and then it has in italics, have children of harlotry. So the New American Standard is saying you got to understand this as something that's going to happen in the future. Literally, when you get into the Hebrew in this particular passage, if you were just to stick with it, I think that probably the New International gets as close to it. This would be my take on the Hebrew. Go, take to yourself a wife of fornications. Okay, this is a really broad term here. Promiscuity would be the idea, and children of promiscuity. And so when I wrestle with that, as bizarre as it sounds, it seems to me that what the Lord is asking Hosea to do is go marry a woman who has been, is promiscuous, and has children from those relationships that she's had. So, all right, so if we've got Hosea and Gomer, God and Israel, what's the connection between these two things? Well, I think that was true of Israel too. Even though Hosea looks back on this time of them coming out into the wilderness, there was something pure about Israel then. They had just entered in this covenant relationship. They had responded to the God of Israel. You will be our God. We will do what you say. And God is entering into this covenant relationship with them. But remember when Moses goes up on the mountain for 40 days, what does Israel do? Exodus 32. The golden calf. Now, is Israel sitting around going, well, we've never done this before, but maybe we could worship another God. Let's do that. In fact, let me see. Let's all think of an animal and see what we can come up with here. No, see, they have a context for worship of a golden calf, right? And the connection is Egypt. So later on when Jeroboam goes down and hides out in Egypt, what does he bring back to Israel? The calf again. So the connection is Egypt. They've been in Egypt all this time. They very easily fall again into golden calf worship, which would say to me, Israel was promiscuous when the Lord married her, so to speak. And because this has happened for generations, there were also children of promiscuity, and that makes the story more powerful as far as I'm concerned. From the very beginning, the Lord went to a woman who had been with other men and had children by other men and set His affection on her. That's the amazing story of the gospel. That parallels our lives too, right? Those of us who were dead, rebellious, had turned away from our Creator, worshiped created things rather than the Creator, and God set His affection on us. That's the story of the Bible. Promiscuous people and God putting His affection on them. And that's the story here. And so God says, go take her. And so it's a beautiful picture because Hosea gives this woman who had really never known stable relationship with a man, and takes her children who had never known a father in the home and gives them a good life. He loves them. He says, I choose you to be my wife. Let's have a life together. And then they have additional children. So I think they have a good marriage for a period of time. They're having children together, happy home, watching Sesame Street, whatever it might be that they did in those days. Reading books before they go to bed or scroll. I mean, they had a nice life at that point. And then Gomer goes off again and begins to pursue her other lovers. And what is God going to do? Give up on His people? No. He's going to be faithful to His covenant, and He's going to bring them back in and put His love on them again, even though they've been chasing after their other gods. That's the power of the story of Hosea. Does that make sense to you? And so you've got this Hosea, Gomer, God and Israel thing going on. Israel was a mess when God brought her into relationship, and God's been faithful to them, but Israel's been a mess since then, and God's going to continue to bring into relationship, and He will restore them in the end. And so when you get to chapter 3, and there's this non-consummation of the marriage the second time, that's a picture of what God's going to do to Israel. He's going to strip them of all their lovers. And for a period of time, they're going to go without, and that's going to return her to her proper husband. And she's going to realize it's the Lord. And so chapter 2 even brings that out. I will go back to my first husband as before, because that's really who was taking care of me. And so it's this incredible story. And you can see all the views there. Look on the very last page of all those views, though. What page is that for your notes? So 43, look at the very top of the page. Major point, regardless of the view held, is that God is being a faithful partner in relationship with Israel, who's playing around with other lovers and spurning the one to whom she's married. It doesn't matter to me which view you want to take here, except I want to take Hosea and Gomer as real. And it's a physical infidelity, but regardless, that's the major point. You see that? And that's why this is a beautiful book. Even though you've got 90% curses and sin, evidences of sin, you've got a God who, like in chapter 2 says, is going to allure her into the desert and continue in relationship with her. It's just powerful.
We hope you enjoyed this message. Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Learn more at biola.edu.